Electronic Arts is looking at putting in-game ads in their AAA games again, but promising that this time we'll be very thoughtful as we move into that. And then later clarified throughout the course of this article that the $70 EA games that you purchase made by AAA studios that are supposed to be complete products in and of themselves will have dynamic advertisements. Now, this isn't the first time that they've done this. You might remember on UFC 4, they had this commercial for the boys that would pop up in the middle of the game and be unskippable, extremely unpopular, or even going all the way back to, I believe it was 2008, Barack Obama bought campaign ads in Burnout Paradise, and you could get ads in Need for Speed, which is a little bit wild, but that system wasn't really considered successful. I don't think these ads did very well, and they led to a whole bunch of backlash from the community. Well, EA just decided to wait a little bit, and they're planning to roll out ads again, saying advertising has an opportunity to be a meaningful growth driver for us. We have teams internally in the company right now looking at how we do very thoughtful implementations of our game inside of our game experiences, which is just downright awful and frustrating. This article kind of tries to go on and justify it, which is a little bit odd for Tom's Hardware, talking about how AAA game development is now very, very expensive, and games like Cyberpunk and Modern Warfare 2 and Star Citizen costing hundreds of millions of dollars to make, that it's a natural progression that game companies like television and streaming companies would want to put ads in their games to recoup the cost. I'm not going to play a game that has ads. That's one of the number one reasons I don't play mobile games. Now, the CEO says they won't pop up, they won't interrupt gameplay, it won't be annoying, but if you look at mobile games, basically any of them, all of them, that's exactly what they do, is they pop up ads all the time, not just the free-to-play ones where you watch like car commercials, but in-game ads. If I boot up Raid Shadow Legends, which I legit played for like 4 years straight, I have 20 ads to click through before I can even get to the game. And if I'm paying $70 for a game, that's going to drive me insane. I've canceled all of my streaming services that rolled out ads and embraced alternative means of acquiring entertainment and information. And it's going to be the same with games. If these games have a ton of pop-ups, I am out. And I don't... I think all they did is wait for a slightly younger generation that's more used to ads being in everything, more tolerant of it, so they can keep farming them. And eventually we're just going to be playing and watching all ads. It's going to be all advertisements all the way down with no content in the near future. What you're looking at here is not a color blindness test that's been zoomed in on about 50 times. Rather, these are microscopic machines that are designed to remove microplastics and microbes from the water, which is very, very cool. We got this article from ACS, which is Chemistry for Life. And in case you didn't know, we're talking about cleaning up microplastics. Microplastic pollution is absolutely everywhere. This says that they measure 5 millimeters or less, or sometimes even smaller, which means that as plastic breaks down, tiny little imperceptibly small plastic shards end up in our drinking water, in our food, in the ecosystem, in the fresh water, salt water, just pretty much everywhere, and we don't really have a good way to clean them. Well, scientists have invented these little, we're going to go to the actual video of them, these little micro machines, and what they wanted to do is see if they could remove microplastics and bacteria. So these little machines are, I believe they're magnetically charged polymers encapsulated in a little bead. And what happens is that when you expose them to a magnetic field, they form certain structures and will filter the water, attracting and sticking the plastic to them, and also sticking microbes to them as they swim along. So the way this is supposed to work is that you can put these little tiny, I say that they're robots, but they're robots in the fact that they are magnetic and respond to a magnetic field. They're not like sentient or thinking or programmed or microchips or anything like that. And they will get the plastics and bacteria to stick with them. And the way they do that is you'll put these guys in a, let's say a free-standing or floating bit of water. It'll absorb the plastics first. Then you can turn on the magnetic field and it will straighten into lines, as you saw in the video, and catch all the little bacteriums as well. Then you can just drain the water, filter these guys out, and you have clean plastic and bacteria-free water, which I think is very, very cool. I don't know how practical this is to do at large scale. Surely this is going to be expensive to manufacture all the little beads and manage the magnetic field and stuff. But hey, we got to do something. Bacteria has been here forever, but microplastics are new, and nobody's really taken that seriously. Microplastic poisoning is going to be a nightmare for the next 300 years, so getting ahead of it is a very good thing. I've got some more good news for the environment today as scientists discover a cheap catalyst made out of household sugar that has the power to destroy carbon dioxide, the dreaded greenhouse gas that contributes the most to global warming. So this came from Northwestern University, and it introduces a cost-effective catalyst using cheap molybdenum and table sugar that converts CO2 into carbon monoxide, which is useful for creating a whole bunch of fuels, including synth gas. So this is a gross oversimplification of the process down here below. But the catalyst, which is the thing in the middle, is made out of sugar, regular old sucrose household table sugar, and a element called molybdenum. And yes, I'm saying that correctly. It's not molybdenum. I actually looked this up because that's a word that I had almost always only read and never really heard spoken aloud. But the reason for this is that molybdenum is really good at removing or breaking apart this molecule in a safe way is a better way to say it. But it requires molybdenum carbide, which isn't normally available. But if you combine sugar and regular molybdenum, you get molybdenum carbide. Now, what's unique about this is we've had these kind of processes before, but they usually required platinum, palladium, or something like that. However, molybdenum, and that's going to be the word of the day, my God, is an inexpensive, non-precious, earth-abundant metal. It doesn't pollute an insane amount. It's easy to get. It's low cost. And all you can combine it with sugar to make molybdenum carbide, and in a very efficient way, turn environmentally harmful carbon dioxide into potentially useful carbon monoxide. Now, we don't recommend you breathe it. That's bad for you. But using it as a value-added component or as an intermediary step in producing synthetic fuels, it's extremely valuable. I don't know if this scales very well, but it does seem to show promise based on just how cheap the primary ingredients are, which is an extremely unrare common metal and sugar. So at least that component of it is very simple and straightforward. According to scientists, self-driving vehicles could be massively improved if we improved our traffic lights by adding a fourth white signal light to communicate directly with the AI in charge of the car. It's kind of like the opposite idea of what Mercedes-Benz came out with a few years ago, where they had this turquoise exterior light to indicate that the car is in self-driving mode and let other drivers know that. Well, traffic lights and traffic signals are currently the biggest problem with self-driving cars. They don't always read correctly. They don't always scan correctly. Sometimes the car is under the thing it's supposed to be reading, and it's just a little bit complicated. So it makes total sense, so much so that I feel like an idiot for not having thought of this 2 decades ago. We've only got 3 lights in America, at least. We've got red, yellow, and green. However, if we added a 4th light for autonomous vehicles, and they recommend white because it's very easy to sense and read, but the color, it doesn't have to be very specific. You can use this to guide AI vehicles, tell them when to come and go, give them different signals. It could pulse or flash. We could even do infrared light. We could do something less visible. Basically, one additional signaling on the light itself can give a ton of additional information to the autonomously piloted car. Sounds like a plane, self-piloting vehicle, and just improve the entire function of the algorithm or AI or whatever's in charge. And it just seems so obvious now that somebody has pointed it out that we could not just one light. What if we built 2? What if we had a white light and a little infrared? And we kept the normal lights, but the car's got a little something extra with the sensors going on, that, a little extra information. I think it would be fantastic. However, the scientist that made this article pointed out that for it to be cost effective, you're going to need to hit about 40 to 50% vehicles on the road using autonomous driving. Otherwise, you can't really justify the expenditure on upgrading all of the lights. Now, the upgrades they recommended all run on the same infrastructure. So that's like the same poles, the same electricity and equipment for the most part. But you will need to update the interior of the light itself, obviously, to have more lights and with some more sophisticated chip technology.